Hello and welcome to a football podcast with myself, Kristian Jack, and Stephen Caldwell. Today we chat about Canada's women versus the Netherlands, Canada's men versus Mexico. The next step for VAR is the one, I don't know. The Gold Cup, the Women's VAR Cup, because that's basically what we should call it. 2 more years of matter at Manchester United, more transfer gossip, and lots to get into today with the summer tournaments. Shawnee, how are you?
Doing good. Feeling a little bit under the weather, but you know, we'll push through.
Is that like post-hangover from the Raptors Parade, or?
Oh, I'm sure all of the alcohol has pushed this sickness to now, yes.
I'm going to say, it's definitely contributed. But we're all at the Raptors Parade. It was a good week in the city of Toronto, right?
Amazing to see that many people in the streets, wasn't it?
Oh, it was incredible. Where were you guys in the...
I was at the, I felt like I made an intelligent decision. So we got up early and we were at the Princess Gates by 8 a.m. Since then, my son's baseball team were absolutely dumbfounded that 1, he got a champion's hat already, and 2, that we went to the parade and we're back home in our living room by 1 o'clock watching it. They're like, how did you get down there? I'm like, we drove. How did you get back? I'm like, 30 minutes at 12:30 in the afternoon was easy to get out of the city. So we did a decent job, but you were right. I mean, I'm a periphery kind of guy. Stephen Caldwell is right in the middle kind of guy, and you were right there.
Yeah, we went right down to Nathan Phillips Square, and when we got there, I guess it was about 10 a.m. It was absolute pandemonium. You couldn't move. It was actually quite scary. You know, I've been in part of a lot of crowds through watching football games and being at Hampden and Old Trafford, wherever, all these stadiums with 70, 80,000, but there was so many people, KJ. You kind of got stuck in a little area, and it was a little bit scary, a little bit dangerous. I had my 2 lads, Will and Robbie, with me, who are 11 and 12, and so it was weird, but we had to go all the way around, and a buddy of mine had a hotel in the Sheraton, which overlooks Nathan Phillips Square, so we watched the majority of it from there.
You literally had friends in high places.
Yeah, really did. So it was great watching it from there, but we waited 2 hours and nothing was happening. It was not getting anywhere closer to where we were, so we just hot-footed it back and got back and watched most of the parade at home, but nice. I'm glad they experienced it, but yeah, I think next time, hopefully, when the more championships come through the Leafs or the Raptors, I hope that we're a wee bit more prepared.
Next year, when they completely win it again, maybe they'll have a better parade, right, Shawnee?
Fingers crossed. I was 9 hours in the same position from 8:30, 9 o'clock, right behind the Toronto sign.
Okay.
So right in the thick of it. And yeah, I got there around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I didn't leave until 3:30. Wow. So I didn't,
Did you go to the washroom at all? Or?
No, so here's good idea /
Sorry, we are going to talk about football in a minute. This is just very important.
Good idea, bad ideas. Yeah. Good idea. I just woke up and went straight there without drinking, eating, doing anything. So my body was completely empty.
Right.
Bad idea. But at the same point, it was fine. But I was also shaded, so I didn't really need water that much.
Okay.
But I also couldn't really, after a couple hours and with no like beers on me, I didn't feel in a celebratory mood, so I just got really grumpy.
Start getting angry.
Right. Yeah, and so anyway.
Fun times. So that's a marathon, by the way. That is a real marathon.
Do we know any numbers? How many people were actually there? A couple of million?
At least.
Must have been. Yeah, it was crazy crowds.
It's got to be a couple of million. It's been a wild week on the pitch, a wild week in Toronto. A wild match between Scotland and Argentina, by the way. Sorry, I have to start here, Stevie. Before we came on, and I've said this to you before, your home nation, Scotland, in any sport, they are the world champions at spectacular failures. They are the world champions at teasing you that it just might happen. European qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, rugby games against Australia, doesn't matter. Six Nations games against England. They are the best at the nation of teasing you that it might just happen and then taking it away from you. Take us through your family's emotions as this is probably going to lead to a chat about VAR very soon as well.
Yeah, so we were out and about, which was because it was my youngest son Robbie's birthday. So, you know, we weren't really in for the match, but we get in. I think it was 2-0 when we got in. We certainly seen the third goal, and we were elated. We couldn't. I think maybe it was 1-0 actually. But anyway, we get in. They're in the lead. Okay, this is good. This is exciting. 2-0, 3-0, we're on the ceiling, we can't believe it. I'm a little bit tired, I've been up early, Sean, never had a great night's sleep, so, you know, I have a little snooze, it's done, we're through, this is amazing.
You're like 7 hours away from calling a Gold Cup game.
Of course, I'm thinking about the night time work, but so I have a little snooze on the couch, the game's in the background, my dad's watching it next to me, he's over from Scotland for a few days, and the lads are jumping in and out, and I wake up and it's 3-2, and I'm like, oh well, maybe I should stir myself a little bit here and
never fall asleep with the Scots are winning 3-0.
And I was most certainly awake, although it did feel like a nightmare for the whole shenanigans. It's only the word that I can think to describe it that happened for the Argentine third goal. It was, KJ, come on.
What's going on, mate?
Shambolic,
What's
wasn't
going
it?
on?
It was a penalty, of course.
Right.
It was the right decision, in my opinion, to award the penalty. But how can you bring out a rule where the goalkeepers, we know that it's a rule, but it's a very flimsy rule, and now you're going to just be to the letter, your VR to check if any part of the foot's on the line. How can you roll that out during a World Cup?
So quickly, for those who weren't aware, who didn't see it, for the third time already
Yes.
in the FIFA Women's World Cup, a goalkeeper was penalised for not having 1 foot on the line during a penalty kick.
Yeah.
Third time already. And that's basically what happened. The penalty was missed, ordered to be retaken.
Yeah.
In typical Scottish fashion, the Argentine girl scored the goal, 3-3, and knocked Scotland
And
out
she
of the World
tried
Cup.
so hard to stay in her line, though, didn't she?
She did.
You know, like the first one or two, well, maybe so that they thought they could get away with it, but now these girls understand that they need to be in their line. They're trying so hard; it's almost impossible to save a penalty kick if you need to have your feet in the line. I'm very interested to see some of the techniques that are going to come up as this is going to roll through the women's and the men's game, because I'm sure the Edersons, the Alison Beckers, the Neuers of the world are going to have really some unique ways of arriving on that line. And I say arriving because I think they're going to start from in the goal, and they're going to rush out and try and time it when
If they allow them to do that, because you're actually supposed to be on the line.
Okay.
So, I mean, you might be right. Like 1 foot, maybe they'd be like, they'll do a little like dash. Like right now, we're going
Jump out.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm coaching third base for my son's baseball team. And so I teach them like to let 1 foot off the line, like get ready in that sprinting position.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be like,
Maybe like that,
we'll
ready
do
to
that.
spring.
Did you see the breaking news today that the Premier League has said that they will not be enforcing the law?
Good.
So they said that VAR, because every individual, lawmakers of the rules can implement them however they want.
Okay.
So just because they say that they're going to leave that decision to the referee. So if the referee sees, in the Premier League, Ederson stepping off the line and basically running up to the ball, he's going to go, no, that was my decision. But they're not going to allow it to go to VAR, which one is we're just basically already blowing a hole in the idea of it anyway. It's just smart. But second of all, in the first year of the Premier League adopting the VAR, it would just be utter madness if that started going in as well.
Madness. I can't think how many penalties would be scored, because we're going to the number of penalties given is going to ramp right up as VAR comes in. That's already happened, and then most of them are going to go in the back of the net. I can't imagine.
It's getting harder and harder to
any
say.
of these technicians, these guys, best players in the world from 12 yards, with a goalkeeper having to stay in that line, you could probably just mail it to where he's going to go and actually pass it into the corner. I don't know how he gets there unless he shuffles along the line. So it's madness, and I really felt for Lee Alexander, the Scotland goalkeeper, against Argentina. The save that she made was brilliant. She tried so hard to stay in the line. It was a matter of inches that meant she was, I think it was a left foot that was off the line, and then she made a brilliant follow-up save. It was just complete heartbreak. And what was the best game of the World Cup? Scintillating game. Two exciting teams. Two teams that went out to try and win the game, of course, and get that third place. And it was such a shame that VAR had such a big part to play. Then no added time. I forgot about that bit.
Yeah.
It took 3.5 minutes of the 4 to get to the decision, and she blew the whistle at about 95. There should have been at least another couple of minutes, 3 minutes of added time. It was a shambles.
Yeah, it is a shambles. And this weekly chat about VAR, we need a sponsor really just to sponsor the VAR segment, because we're going to be talking about it every week. Shout out to our
I think about that all
shout
week.
out to our
the right
mate
sponsor would be.
Yeah, shout out to our mate Joe Ross, who's a loyal listener who texts me after every single show, and texts me after the show we did last week to saying, you and Stevie still clinging on to VAR just about. You'll come over to the dark side soon. This is a man who, when the VAR happened in the Confed Cup, sent to me a text message saying the death of association football 1800s to 2017. VAR killed the sport. As I said in my reply to him, cracks are appearing right now, but solid footing still. That was on June 11th. Since then, I'm not quite sure if I'm solid footed, because VAR continues to get on our nerves. And I want to say this, that I'm still a proponent of VAR if it is done in a thorough way, and it is done with a consistent high threshold for clear and obvious errors.
Yeah.
That is when it needs to happen. However, the barn door is open now. And that is what is very concerning, because once the threshold gets lower and lower and lower, then oh boy, we're going to have utter madness going on. And that's what's happening in all around the world. Every interpretation of the sport is different. Every different tournament. We're watching Women's World Cups now. We've been watching the European leagues. We're both watching Copa America. Gold Cup doesn't have it. And thankfully, we're actually thankful of that.
It's enjoyable,
it's
isn't it?
Enjoyable. Because Copa America has been, in some regards, absolutely insufferable to watch.
Yeah, it has. It really has. We thought that VAR would clarify the game, and it's made it even murkier, and it's made it slower, and it's made it mired in decisions and rules, and the antiquated rules that we have within the game are now in question, a number of them, and it's just created this huge storm around it, and that's what's disappointing for me. I hoped and thought that the introduction of VR would make things clear, and it would mean that, you know, decisions weren't made that affected, you know, people's livelihoods and vast sums of money going to the clubs that absolutely deserved it. And now I just think that it's caused so much confusion, and we still have that same doubt. I just wished it was maybe a referee's decision, or, you know, a linesman's sleight of eye that missed the offside, or because now I feel like we still have that same amount of doubt. It just takes longer. It just takes away a lot of the unbridled passion that we have in the game, because we're now waiting on VAR. I call a lot of games in MLS and Gold Cup with Canada national team. I'm scared to come in with my point, because I'm trying to analyse all the things. I think there's going to be a VAR check in the MLS, and I'm waiting to see, and it's affecting the way that I'm doing my job. It's affecting the players. They're over to the referee. Everybody's just got a sour taste in their mouth because of this thing, and we need to get somewhere with it, KJ, don't we?
And it's entertainment.
I know.
We're supposed to be entertained by this. This is what people lean on.
This is not entertaining,
and this is not
it?
entertaining for anybody.
No.
It's not entertaining for the rule makers. It's not entertaining for the players. It's not entertaining for the public who pay the tickets or watch them on television. It isn't. They've got it all wrong, and it needs to stop quickly. And this is dangerous. It's very dangerous. They need to understand, get all the lawmakers quickly together, get the powerful people together in a room and talk about thresholds. It doesn't need to be scrapped. We are two proponents of this. We're not fanboys getting mad about things. We've spoke at length to big proponents of this, lawmakers around the game. But it should be testing decisions, not making decisions.
No.
That's the key. Test the decision, not make it. I don't want you to be, for me, they are belittling the official on the field right now.
Yeah.
That official, I've got tremendous amount of respect for. One of the hardest sports, if not the hardest sport in the world to referee.
Yeah.
And they are all, by the way, no matter what you think, they're all bloody good. Okay.
Absolutely.
They're outstanding professionals. We have respect for professionals at the level that they make for players and talent. We need to enhance respect for the official, everybody in the global game. And this isn't enhancing it. It's actually making it worse.
Yeah.
It's taking away their powers. It's going, you didn't see that. We're going to come in. It's the equivalent of everybody driving down the QEW, the highway we've got right here, where everyone knows it says 100 kilometers an hour, and everybody going over 101, getting home and getting a ticket and saying, we got a shot of you doing 101, you got fined.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming, because that's the problem.
Yeah.
We don't see it coming. Educated fans who are watching the games, commentators, people like us who are involved in the game, when it comes in, we go, I didn't see that coming. Why are they interfering for things that we didn't necessarily want or need?
Yeah.
That's the concern. It should be for overwhelming evidence to correct the clear and obvious. Like today's game, Canada, given a penalty after a minute. It was a clear and obvious error. Clear and obvious error. Took 4 minutes to decide that it was a clear and obvious error. That's another problem. But the referee standing around holding her hand to the ear for 2 minutes when she could have run over to the screen in 12 seconds. That's another problem as well. But that's the thing for me, is that the respect has got to go up for the official. And right now it's far too murky, and they're making it worse, and the respect for the officials getting lower and lower.
Well, they're making it worse, and it's because they're bringing in these new regulations, and you think about the one with the goalkeeper on the line. It's, you know, there's never been one goalkeeper that their foot was touching the line that saved a penalty in the last, I don't know how long, forever. So how can you bring that rule in?
Maybe the one who Ali Adnan, the one.
Yeah, yeah, he fell, had a cup of tea, got up, then still caught it.
He did, yeah.
No, all goalies cheat a little bit, you know, and so to bring that out at a World Cup is just make a mockery of the whole thing. And like I said, you're waiting with bated breath. You don't know what's going to happen. It's took away that passion, that unbridled passion when you're just like cheering a goal. You're now going like, okay, I need to check. Does that look onside? What is the referee doing? How are the players reacting? You're checking all these other things before you celebrate the goal. And then when you eventually go to celebrate the goal or call the goal or whatever it may be, whatever your role is within that game, it's been diminished because of that the rule making. I don't like it. I don't like the way that it's going. I still believe, like you, KJ, I still believe there is a place for VAR. I just think that we're meddling in areas that are really, really dangerous at the moment, really dangerous to the game of soccer.
Yeah, is it too much to ask for us that we want a system to put in place where if you give a penalty to a team in the World Cup that is clearly not a penalty, that it can be reviewed, that we can still have that without having all the other utter nonsense? Is that too much for us to ask? Figure it out. Get it sorted out pretty quickly. Lots of people on Twitter talking about this today. Sandra said the ref standing there for a long time is frustrating. You know, obviously the optics of that. I think the optics for me is that even in MLS, and I've told Howard Webb this myself, sometimes in the clear and obvious, this taking forever and ever and ever, talking to the referee, and then having the referee run over and check it.
Yeah.
For me, optically, I think they do that because they still want to make sure that for everybody else is the man or the woman in charge of the game. They make the clear-cut decision. But for me, I'm not asking the VAR to re-referee the game, but in clear, obvious decisions, when in the entire universe can see in 10 seconds that it's not a penalty, why do we have to go through all this trite nonsense of this guy just running over to optically make sure that everyone knows, oh, well, here's the man in charge, or here's the woman in charge. It's wasting time. So that's got to go. And I hope with time that will go. I hope with time that with the system in place, we maybe even need to, everyone can hear the communication that if the VAR can say, clear and obvious, outside the penalty box, you need to award a free kick now. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. Yeah,
I think so as well. I'm just thinking back there to, we've been watching a lot of games lately across different platforms, but I was thinking to the Brazil goal against Venezuela the other night where...
Well, they had 3 disallowed.
Yeah. And it was, I was worried for the ref. I didn't know I was going to get out of the stadium alive because, of course, the Copa America is in Brazil and he's disallowing Brazilian goals. But the one where Coutinho played it in the net and Firmino tries to get out of the way. He's in an offside position. He's no part of the play. I think the ball's going in anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the ball's going into the back of the net. It clips off his knee and goes into the net, and then the decision's made that he's offside. I couldn't believe it. Awful decision. My favourite word, pedantic. It's like this VR's making everything so pedantic, everything so structured, and that's not what this game is. This game's about passion, and it's about people with skill doing things that are memorable because it just comes so naturally to you. We're turning it far too robotic for my liking.
On Twitter, Andrea agrees with you. She said they need to add more appropriate time back on in the extras. It's not the players' fault how long VAR is and they're being penalised. Daniel said you got a team of refs reviewing it, accept their judgment or go view it yourself, not both. Lots of comments there as well. Dan says he thinks the total length of these things is far too long as well. Black and white decisions are able to be made a lot quicker. Thanks for all your tweets coming in. We appreciate it. In the game we mentioned, Canada lost to the Netherlands 2-1. They finished second in the group. Canada had started pretty well. They had the penalty obviously overturned and led to a Kristian Sinclair free kick that hit the wall. But overall, the best team won. The best team won the group. Netherlands get an easier path. The game has just finished, so forgive us if it isn't the case, but we expect Canada to play Sweden as that game goes on later today in the next round, and now a very difficult path for them with the likely quarterfinal destination if they beat the Swedes with Germany. So overall, I mean, I think we both suggested at the start of the tournament, this is what we thought Canada would do, finish second in the group.
Yeah.
But a bit disappointing going forward. And Claire Rust had made an interesting point on TSN where she felt that Canada was better without Kristian Sinclair. All every credit for Claire for her honest analysis there. But interesting that Kenna Heinemola took off Kristian Sinclair as well. And Adriana Leon brought on, so I know we're going everywhere here, but she brought on that kind of pace and fluidity that you need out of an impact sub.
Yeah, she was excellent when she came on. I think that begs the question, with Sinclair getting on a bit in years, or lack of mobility, it did look like it really freshened up the Canadian attack, bringing on Adriana Leon, if he's trying to manage her minutes, was this the game to manage their minutes? They had 2 pretty comfortable victories in the first 2 games. Maybe she should have came off in them. I think there's an element trying to get her to the record in this World Cup that probably came into play, thinking there was more readily the opportunity to score goals in the first 2 games, but that should not come into the equation. This is a team game. Yeah. This should be about Kristian Sinclair's an exceptional team player, so I'm sure she'd be embarrassed by that.
Yeah, there's no way she would have accepted
no
that
way.
conversation.
She just wants to be in the team, but they did look sharper and faster and a bit more dynamic when Leon was on, but not a great performance from Canada again. I thought they looked vulnerable defensively. Buchanan got caught a little bit. She's the most dominant defender for Canada, and she looked a little bit risky as well. Labe looked shaky,
on
didn't she?
On the second goal, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things I thought she looked a little bit shaky. So Netherlands is a good side. To me, they're more of an outside bet winning this World Cup than Canada are, and I think that showed today.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so Canada will play Sweden next. In the end, 2 wins and 1 loss from a tournament where I think most people would have expected them to win the first 2 games. And maybe it's gone, as I said, as we expected, but they will have to be better. Tempo is a word that comes to mind. I actually heard Andrea Neil a little bit on TSN Radio use that word as well. I know Claire Rostad has talked about that as well. These girls know the team, and they were a bit disappointed that, I won't use their word here, but I felt they were a bit timid. A little bit timid in terms of their play. Kind of Animola said after the game that he felt that they were a little bit slow and ponderous a little bit in the first 5-10 minutes to start the match. Yeah. I just wanted them to impose themselves, Stevie, a little bit more in a game. I think that would have been more something I would like to have seen out of them a little bit more in the dynamicism. I try and say that 5 times. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Big decisions to be made with selection as well. Yeah. Is he going to be brave?
Well, he picked Heidemer, didn't he, today? Prince had a little bit of a knock. We're not sure if that was a tactical one or a rest for her, but
yeah. I think the Riviere, who's been excellent as well.
I agree.
She brings a real dynamicism to the play.
You can say it, yeah.
Can he find a place in the team for her? And a lot to ponder for Kenneth. I think it's going to be a tough few days as the pressure really ramps up. It would be bitterly disappointing if this team goes out in the last 16. That will not be a successful World Cup. So a lot to ponder. Does he go with the old tried and tested, or does he try something a little bit different to just get a fresh spark into this group?
Yeah, I want to ask you quickly about Ashley Lawrence. Every game I watch her, I think she's one of the best players for Canada. And sometimes I wonder whether she shouldn't be playing fullback.
Yeah.
What about you?
Fair point. She was brilliant today in fullback. Lika Martins is a very good player. She saw her off. She did. She was great defensively. Yeah. She comes inside. She's a big part of the game. She's shown her versatility, her ability to play anywhere, really. And I love how she's grabbing these games from right fullback.
Yeah.
She's pretty much the most dominant player for Canada. She's been excellent, far and away, in my opinion, the best player for the Canadians at the World Cup so far. I'm with you. You think maybe when you're looking for a spark in the forward areas, maybe we should try and push her up and
she'd bring that speed, that tempo, that directness a little bit more to go forward. They've got a lot of comfortable players. Scott had a good game again today. I thought it was a little bit harsh. She got took off. Fleming was quiet, but she was very good against New Zealand. They're all very similar type of profiles. Do you know what I mean? They're comfortable on the ball, pass, move, get into space. But, that directness sometimes when you need to take a game by the scruff of the neck and go and attack and really take it. And fullbacks for the Netherlands that was quite the vulnerable area. I just felt maybe they're not going to make that change now. I get it, but it's something that I would like to see play a little bit more further forward for Canada.
I think so. I think her ability to dribble as well. It's a different profile from Jordan Huitema, isn't it? Who is more of a target type player, probably the heir apparent to Kristian Sinclair's throne, you would think, but she's trying to get some minutes. She's playing the wide area. I don't know if that really worked. So, like I said, a lot to ponder. He's got a tough few days ahead of him. They've got to win. They've got to win this next game, and it's not going to be easy. If it's US, it's going to be very, very difficult, but we expect it to be Sweden as we're recording at the moment, and they won't be easy at all.
No, they won't.
It sets up a very tough quarterfinal if they indeed get through.
The one thing I would say is that they do, for the majority of the moments of the game, they are pretty tight, and maybe that tournament style of football, which has been so good for them in the past, they find ways to win.
Comes in at the knockout stage, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. And next week's show, which will be Wednesday following the TFC game at BMO Field, we'll certainly have a recap on that and a recap of how things are going at the Gold Cup, where Canada lost. The men's team lost 3-1 in Denver, Colorado on Wednesday evening. We did the game for TSN. Lots to get into here.
Yeah.
Shawnee's going to be winding on the clock pretty quickly. So, where do we start? Now, maybe let's start at the very start.
Yeah.
So we'll go through the game chronologically, maybe. We won't last 90 minutes because we don't have the time, but we'll start at the beginning, and the beginning has to start with the team selection.
Yeah.
Now, we had a broadcast meeting with John Herdman the day before. We were very aware of why he's done what he's done. I do want to say publicly that this has got nothing to do with the way we're going to analyze John Herdman, but I want to say this. The man has been nothing but a gentleman with us so far with his time.
Absolutely.
We are privileged to work with in this industry and talk to a number of coaches days in advance for MLS broadcasts, national team broadcasts. Some are very comfortable at sharing lineups. Some never share a lineup.
Yeah.
John Herdman has been 100% with us right from the get-go. No doubt about it. And that's important to say.
It is important to say he's been superb, KJ. He's been very open and engaging. A lot of that stuff doesn't make it for public consumption, but it certainly helps us as we prepare to try and do a broadcast. He's been great with his lineups, trying to explain why, he's reasoning for the future coming up again that might not make it on air, but is something that is critical for us, isn't it?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, because we try, and then it is our job and our duty to try and convey that message to those people watching home that we've heard. Now, we occasionally will put our own opinions in there, and we don't have to necessarily agree with everything that he does, and John doesn't expect us to do that, and we've asked him, and actually sometimes he enjoys us being challenging. We had a good chat about Larin playing in that position and what he thought there and those things. So they're good conversations, but I think it's important for people listening that John has been very open right now. And I think that's a man. The reason why I bring that up is because I think that's a confident man with a plan. He's got a plan. He's got an idea. He is very, very adamant in his own ways about how things go, meticulous. Whether you agree with them or not, he's thought these through. He's not making decisions on a whim. And this 3-4-3, 5-4-1, call it whatever you want, was in the plans the moment that ball was run out behind closed doors in a CONCACAF draw that he got Mexico.
Yeah.
That was what he was going to do.
Yeah, he had this preconceived idea, and he's spoken at length about his experience of tournament football, and you can see he's in his element here, isn't he? When he talks to us, when we see him in, public interviews, we saw him have his little spat with Tata Martino at the side, which I loved as well.
Love that, yeah.
He's not going to, whimper away in a corner. He's got confidence, John. He's confidence and belief in how he prepares and how he does things, and that confidence has really came across for me throughout this entire Gold Cup so far. And he had a distinct plan, a way that he wanted to play, an idea that he felt was the right thing to show Mexico and combat Mexico's qualities and strengths as a team. Now, back to the early part of the game. Did Canada stop Mexico from creating real opportunities? And if let's take 20 minutes, 25 minutes at start. Yes. Did they concede too much possession to a quality Mexico side? Yes. In my opinion.
100%.
Were they too respectful towards an exceptional team, the best team in the tournament? Yes. I think they should have came out and been a wee bit more on the front foot, got that line up a little bit, pressure a touch higher, and not allowed Mexico to settle into a tactic, a way of playing that I think they were probably a little bit surprised with. I think they expected a wee bit more grit and sort of forward play from Canada, and so I think that they actually relaxed because of that tactic. They went, okay, this is like Cuba in terms of the style of play, and like Martinique and like the other teams we're going to play, and it's about us being in our rhythm and finding a way to break them down. And I think that surprised them, and I think that was a wrong decision from John, a wrong decision from Canada. I think they should have we used to say it in the changing room a lot, Go be the best version of yourselves. Go give them what they expect, you know?
Yeah.
The teams expect you to come at them. Go at them. Give them, don't disappoint them. Don't disappoint them. It was all a quirky thing that we used to say. And I think in some sense they sort of disappointed Mexico because they thought, oh, well, we were expecting someone else here. Now it's about us breaking you down. And when you give a team of that quality so much space and time and method to go and build up the play and get in between the lines, get the space, inevitably there's going to be one or two times there's a mistake or they get into a good area or there's a moment of quality from one of their players and they hurt you and they go into the lead, and then where do you go? And that's what I think happened last night.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think eventually the best team will always find your weakness. And tactically, I tried to show this at halftime, and you talked about it in commentary. I mean, Gallardo was,
superb.
Fantastic. The left back for Mexico, best player on the field. Alvarado came deep. They created overlaps in wide areas. Broguiard was quite often by himself because Larin was playing quite narrow.
Yeah.
And then, ironically, John Herdman recognized that and switched Davies with Larin in the second part of the first half. But what happens? The goal comes from the other side when Larin is now on that side.
Yeah.
Again, overlap in wide areas because Rodriguez on the right side was not quite Gallardo, but he's a tremendous footballer as well. So they lost out in those areas, but as you said, those I think were down to the tactics a little bit, but down to the fact that the other team was just better. The formation was an interesting one because if he'd had gone with 4-3-3 and played Russell Tybert and had played Will Johnson and Kyle Larin in a different formation, then I think more people may have been on his side today. Mm-hmm. But a lot of discussions right now is why about the shape. And a lot of that has come down to because what has happened next. And what happens next is that Canada actually played okay. Davies had a great chance at 1-0. 50 seconds later, down the other end, magnificent finish.
Yeah.
And Guardado has scored and it's 2-0. It's done. Then we see a version of Canada against Mexico that we have not seen for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
A very good version of Canada who played a shape that they were comfortable in with the majority of their best players on the field in a 4-3-3 and for 15 minutes were by far the better team. Now, when we give that analysis, we also have to put the other ingredients into play. Mexico winning 2-0.
Yeah.
Mexico are comfortable at that point. Canada are refreshed. They've got the best players on the field and they've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So those are factors. I get that.
Big time, yeah.
But with the players on the field, they was not intimidated by Mexico and they went at them.
Yeah.
And those, I think, are the moments that John Herb and his coaching staff are going to be thinking a lot about going forward rather than the first 60 minutes.
Yeah, and we saw people playing higher up. We saw people taking chances.
Yes, you said it in commentary. Kay was very high for a midfielder.
Very high. He was like a second striker.
Yeah.
Arfield at times as well was that high as well. The second or the third midfielder was supporting Cavallini, who had absolute scraps, nothing to work on for most of the game. The one run in the left-hand channel and the double strike one was saved by Ochoa, the next one blocked. It was his only moment. And then when he got people around about him, he started to look like a player. But I think that it may have been by design as well, because he did tell us that the night before, John, where he wanted to see the 4-3-3 at some point. Yeah. He expected that scenario to come up in the game where
he wanted to test them against the best.
He would change to that and he would go to that, and so maybe he has learnt a great deal from this game. Or he certainly learnt a great deal from this game, but maybe a lot of it was by design to learn that about this game and to hopefully get another crack at them in the semi-final, because the 5 didn't work. I don't think the key to beating this Mexico team is conceding space to them and allowing them to just have their way in their own half in the build-up. I really don't believe that. I think the key to potentially beating this Mexico team is getting in their faces, creating pressure higher up. We see they can cough the ball up as well. Araujo had a disastrous error for the Cavallini goal. They are vulnerable in certain areas as well. When you ask them questions and you put pressure on them, you make them play in areas they're maybe not so comfortable in. So definitely going forward, the 4-3-3 is a way to play for this team in general. Play your players in the right positions. I would say you've got a adequate to average centre half in a Tiba Hutchinson, and you've got a exceptional midfielder. Play him in midfield. Yeah. It has to play in the base of midfield. No disrespect to Sam Pierre, Anthony Kay, anybody else who could play in that area. Will Johnson. Atiba Hutchinson's your best player. Must play him in midfield.
By a mile.
Arfield has to play every minute of the game.
Yeah.
You talked about Davies going over at the right-hand side to negate the threat of Gallardo. Davies is your best left-sided player, whether it be left fullback or left wing, that's open to debate, but he's best on the left-hand side. Play him on the left. Get your best players in the team in the right areas and have a go. That's what we want to see. If they get back there, have a go. If they lose 3-1, 3-0, 4-0 by having a go, I think we'll have seen progression, we'll have learnt some things, whereas if you just sit back against these guys, they're going to cut you apart. They're going to pick holes in you at some point anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about that a little bit ourselves off camera, didn't we, off mic? If you lose to Mexico in a semi-final and 3-0, 4-1, and your weak links come to the fore and Brogiard gets torn apart, or Daniil Henry and Cornelius have a mistake in them or something, I think the majority of Canada fans will go, that's where we're at. Right? That's where we're at. Before we get to that, and we've got a lot of questions to answer here from our loyal listeners at hashtag AskAFP, and a lot of them are around the 11 and who should play where. I'm going to get to that in a second. I do think we need to address quickly the method behind John Herdman's decisions here. Now, they went from the Rose Bowl to Denver, Colorado at altitude. They lost luggage on the flight. They went to practice on a field that had lacrosse paintings on, so they had to cancel training. Then they went to practice another day and the sprinklers came on, so they had to get off the field at that point. Then they went to practice another day that was cut short from a tornado. So that was and plus they played Sunday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
Now Sunday, Wednesday, I'm talking to a man who spent his entire career playing Sunday, Wednesday. So I'm not asking you to have any sympathy for players playing Sunday, Wednesday. Yeah. But they're playing again, Saturday, Wednesday. They're playing again Sunday this week. So it's 3 games in 8 days.
Yeah.
Then they're playing, if they play Saturday, they might be playing Tuesday again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to factor in here. Now I bring that for a reason because he's a tournament coach and I know he's thought about this. Do you think he would have thought, if I play my best team against Mexico, now regardless, he's saying what he wants to play them in the semifinals. Forget that for a second. If he played his best team against Mexico and they lost 3-1 last night, same outcome. And a lot of those players were tired. Then he went into Cuba and he won the game 1-0, 2-0 with Will Johnson playing and Ty Bett and some others. And it was like, ugh, it was okay. What kind of momentum are you going into that quarterfinal? Yeah. So now maybe the positive loss allows them to now swing the momentum tide again and again, okay, let's trend in a different direction. All the best players coming back for Cuba. Martinique smashed them. The captain's already defected. They're a shambles. Yeah. So we're going to go, they should beat them comprehensively with the best team. And then, although I don't know whether a T-Bro play again, but with the majority of the best players, and then you're ready for a quarterfinal. Yeah. Do you understand where I'm going with the momentum?
I do. And, we won't know until the end. Hindsight's just...
Yes. But I do think that's one of the reasons why he went that way. Do you know what I mean? Why he picked those players now rather than against Cuba.
There's not a whim through any of this. No. There's not like, just, try this and see. This is methodical. This man is methodical. He thinks about everything. There's a reason why he does things, which is what I love about him. That's the first thing that's important in a coach. There has to be a reason. Because it's clarity for your players. You can explain it really quickly. If you have anyone want to question that, you have your answer, you're ready. Mm-hmm. And that allows, everyone to realise that you're a leader. And B, when you have a reason, at least you can fall back on process. At least you can say, we were always going to do this. We had this plan and we failed, but that was the plan. And that was weeks and weeks of preparation.
These were my reasonings behind it.
Yes. It's not, and nothing's by, off the cuff or by chance. So I definitely think there will be a reason. I just think that there's, a lot of quality and a lot of similarity in this squad, and so I think you could have went into Denver and played a stronger team if you wanted, and then played some lesser guys against Cuba, and I still think you'd have won 5-0. Right. I still think that there's not a lot to pick between Hoylett and David and maybe Larin and Cavallini and Osorio or Mark Anthony Kay. There's a number of players that are more than capable of stepping up and doing a job for this team. Godinho did well in the first game. Godinho and Brogiard, there's a little battle going on there. You could have gave Crepeau a game if you wanted instead of Borjan, who made some terrific saves last night. So with that in mind, the question was probably second or third game do I make changes. I do really believe he wanted to make the changes specifically against Mexico for the reasons that we said.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I think he had a feeling that the 5-4-1, the 3-4-3 would have worked against Mexico. I think he has his answer now, and I think that that's a big thing for John. I think that the clarity will be there with him. He's not a man who ponders. When he gets his answer, he realises it. He moves on. There's no doubt if Canada can play Mexico in the semi-final, it's 4-3-3, and the stuff that he'll have learned in that second game will stand him in great stead for that match.
Well, you just answered Jeff, who says, if Canada and Mexico meet in the semis, what formation do you use and who is in the starting 11? Tyler asks, do you think we will see a lineup of Cavallini, David and Hoylett up front, with Davies making the switch to left back to help clean up the back line a bit? Well, because we're football nuts, we've already talked about this because we were chatting about it ourselves. When you saw me this morning, your first question to me was, what's your best 11?
Yeah.
And we went over it. We have a very similar one. So let's get into this. Our best 11 right now, and then we're going to get into a couple of players on this. Milan Boyan is the goalkeeper.
Yes.
Brogiard is the right back.
Yes.
Our centre backs are Daniil Henry and Derek Cornelius.
Yes.
Our left back, and you can save the hate in a second, we'll get to it why. Our left back is
Alphonso
Davies. At central midfield, at the base of central midfield is Atiba Hutchinson. Our midfield is Scott Arfield. Then the other one is either Jonathan Osorio or Mark Anthony Kaye, which we'll talk about in a second. And we have a front three of Jonathan David, Lucas Cavallini, and and Junior Hoylett.
Yeah.
That's what we think is the best team.
Yes.
And up to John Herdman to pick Mark Anthony Kaye or Jonathan Osorio in that position. But I think it's debatable. And I think we've seen enough from Kaye to say that I like him in midfield. I think he was very good for 45 minutes. Maybe drifted out, but he brings balance. I like left-footed players.
Yeah.
I like players that open up the game. And when you have left-footed players, I think it just doesn't get as narrow. And I think he brings a bit more power than Osorio. I feel for Jonathan because I feel like he's at his club level and his international level right now, he is not his profile of player is confusing his managers, and maybe his versatility is hurting him a lot. We've talked about this with Toronto FC a little bit. Again, out wide in a front three late in the game against Mexico. And I mean, what can you do in a front three out wide? It's a difficult one. So that is what we think is the best 11 going forward.
Yeah, I think that when you say it like that, I think Mark Anthony Kaye has to start in that scenario, especially against a team who are better than you. You have that thrust, that power, that defensive ability, and you have Osorio to come off the bench. What a great substitute to bring on to the pitch. A, if you're looking for a goal, or B, if you're maybe taking off one of the wide left, for example, the forward guy, Jonathan David or Junior Hoylett, and Osorio can come more into a midfield shape, be more of a 4-5-1 and solid to break down. But you know, I got a lot of stick during the broadcast last night. I've said it consistently. I'll stick to it.
Is this your? Did you get stick on before I interrupt? I don't know. Is this Alfonso?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got a lot of stick from people on Twitter, did you?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of people out there who don't believe this is the right thing. There's a lot of people in the media who cover this team who don't believe it's the right thing. So before we get into why we think it's the right thing, I'm often thinking we might not be right. We both agree here, but we're both considerably in the minority. So what are the other people thinking? Are they seeing things like last night? Maybe we'll bring you in here, Shawnee. Last night with the goal, people picked on that right away and go, that's another example about why you shouldn't play left back. So do you think that they are seeing it because of his defensive issues, or because they want him further higher up the pitch, or maybe both?
I think maybe both. I think they want him higher up the pitch because they feel he can have a larger impact for the Canadian national team in that position. And I can certainly understand that point of view, but I'm not making this decision on just Alphonso with Canada. I'm making this decision on Alphonso Davies, the greatest prospect we've had in Canadian soccer football for however many years. And the reason that I make this is that I think he's somewhere close to his ceiling in a wide area. I don't think he's going to get a lot better as a left winger. And I think that he has the potential to be really, really good, potentially world class as a left back if he's given the coaching and if he gets a bit consistent with that position, and if he wants to become a regular with Bayern Munich. To me, it's going to have to be in the left back role. So with that in mind, and with the fact that Canada don't have a left back, Mark Anthony Kaye is asked to play there, and I think Alphonso Davies' profile fits that way better than Mark Anthony Kaye with his athleticism. I think that Alphonso Davies should play left back for Canada. I think we've got great wingers, Junior Hoylett, Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, 3 fantastic wide guys. One of them's going to have to miss out if you play Alphonso higher. Just drop him back, bring in Jonathan David, and all of a sudden you've got a great left-hand side there. And I'm consistent with that. I'll never change. I know he made a mistake for the goal, and of course I gave him the curse of death again because I said that it was the right thing to put him back to left back. But
it wasn't just his fault, by the way.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't just his fault. And Canada were pushing at that time as well, as they should have been. And so he was a little bit vulnerable. But he needs to learn more and more how to be a defender, to think like a defender who goes forward, and he'll learn that at one of the best clubs in the world. They will almost certainly try and convert the lad into a left back, and if he wants to take that on, he wants to listen, I think it has great potential to be an outstanding left back.
I'm in your camp, and I want to pick up on something you just said there in a second, but Shawnee, where are you?
I'm still undecided right now. I think for the future, I think it makes the most sense. But right now, if you look at that back line, you have a 19-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 20-year-old, and like Guillard, Cornelius, and Davies. And that scares me, especially when you're putting Davies, who isn't, once again, a defense-first player. You've got so many holes in there. That scares me. But once again, he has speed that can...
But do you feel much better with Kay there? I mean, he's not got a lot of experience playing as a defender.
No, he doesn't. But I think that he can steady the ship. And I think the more experience you have in this moment, once again, this is not about this moment. This is a journey with this team, and you're looking to World Cup. So if you have a couple years under your belt, I get it. It would be, I would be worried playing a very, very, like, it was tough yesterday watching those guys try to play the ball from the back, and just to add another young mind back there, it could break confidence in a back line. And so that's my only take, because I believe that Davies needs more space, and starting farther back down the pitch and running at players creates more opportunity for him to be effective.
I like him in a left back, and I think the modern day left back, the modern day fullback can have almost as much as an impact going forward than they can as a winger.
Yeah.
I think you can get more touches in the game than you can as a winger. You can definitely be involved in the build up of the play a little bit more as a winger, particularly in a profile of a game like last night. So let's take Gallardo. We just talked about him before, the left back from Mexico, who took over the game, right? Was one of the best players playing left back. Okay. Now he is committed to playing in that position. This is the next step. Is Alphonso Davies committed to playing in the left back position? Or, and I don't know this, but is he spitting his dummy out when he's asked to play there? Does he believe completely that he doesn't want to ever play there and he only wants to play wide? Because if that's the case, that's the answer.
Yeah.
No matter what we say, doesn't matter. If he doesn't want to play there, and if we're seeing a drop in mental strength and attitude when he goes to play there, that's a problem. But I agree with you. Ceiling is important. I've compared him on the TSN broadcast, the last 2 broadcasts. Let's compare him to wide players of his age, okay? And I've talked about Vinicius Jr. I've talked about Rodrigo, who Real Madrid have just signed, Jadon Sancho, Kai Havertz, players like that, João Felix, okay? He is not close to those players. And that's not a criticism, that's just a fact. He's not close to those players. Those players are going for 50 to 100 to 150 and eventually.
Yeah.
That's how Alphonso Davies was bought as a project for 15 to 20 million by Bayern Munich. And do I believe next year that Bayern Munich are going to turn him into a left winger and he's going to play as much as they're playing? No, I don't.
No.
So what's the best way of getting him minutes? I think it's that. And I think if he commits to the project at this age, in 3 or 4 years' time, he could be a world-class left back.
Yeah.
I really do. A world-class left back if he commits to the project. If he doesn't, he's going to have a great career anyway. He's going to have a fine career, but I don't think he's got that finishing product that the other players have.
No.
It could work on it, but I just don't think he's got that in his game. And I also think a lot of his game is on instinct and it can and speed. And that from deep area can be a strength of his as well.
It's almost a playmaker in the modern game, the fullback, isn't it? We saw Gallardo run the match from fullback. We talked about Ashley Lawrence earlier in this podcast.
We talk a lot about Robertson on this podcast.
Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. These guys these modern fullbacks play everywhere. They come infield and they go down the channel, they put crosses in, they do absolutely everything. So it's no slight to say. It's not like before where like the sort of least technical player went into fullback, and he was asked to clip it down the channel and put in the odd cross and, defend diagonals in the air. It's not like that anymore, is it?
Yeah, the old adage, what position do you play left back in the changing room? You're the last guy, I'll go on, then we'll stick you in the fullback position. No.
And Guardo was just about as influential inside the field as he was in the wide areas. The number of times he picked up the ball in that just inside left channel and looked so dangerous. That Alphonso Davies has to learn that what he know himself better than anybody else, basically.
Yes.
And so he has to realise, there's nothing like looking in a mirror and knowing where your ceiling is. I've had it. Every player in the world's had it. You hit a game, you're like, ugh, I'm at about my maximum here, and that is a very humbling moment for you, KJ, as a player. You just think, okay, right, now I'm going to have to use my smarts or use other parts of my game to survive here, and I think he's somewhere around about that for Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga in a wing area at the moment, and against the top teams in CONCACAF, Gold Cup, World Cup qualifiers, however far Canada can go, I think that'll be the same. Now, I think he can develop his skills to be comfortable and confident and dominating in left back for both the teams. I really do. I really believe in him. I've felt that from one of the first times I've seen him play, when he played wing under Carl Robinson in Vancouver, where he never shirked working back. He was always good in the tackle. He was strong for a 15, 16-year-old. I always thought, wow, can you imagine if you can bring some tactical defensive nous to this game? You've got an outstanding player there. And I still believe that. And I still think he'll make mistakes if that happens for the next year or two. And people will always gripe up, he should have been a winger, this or that. But I firmly believe that once they take a little bit of time and they teach this guy how to play from that defensive position, he could be world class.
I agree. And I think the final point on this is that we are profiling him in a very, very top class team. A top class team. So, if he wants to go have a great career and be a winger and play, in the Bundesliga for many years to come and have a great career and go score goals for Stuttgart or whoever you want, you know what I mean? But if you want to be that top level, what I always class as being a UEFA Champions League caliber player, then that's what I think is his next step for him. Before we move on to Shawnee and his headlines, Papa C4 asks, what can Canada do to solve its back line, grow with the players they have, or focus on recruiting dual nationals? Well, last week we talked about going out to Tamori's apartment in London, but Tamori right now is at the under 21s. He's at the under 21s. So hopefully you people out there, big fans of the show, who went to his apartment in Sungo, Canada, hopefully you've moved over to Italy and you're currently underneath his hotel and you're maybe going down, I don't know, maybe singing out Oh Canada in Italy right now with a pizza or something. That would be nice. But Tamori getting closer and closer to England, which is breaking Canada's hearts.
Breaking our hearts.
Yes. But yeah, how can they do the back line? Well, we're just going to have to see what the next crop of generational players come. I mean, in 10 years, Will Caldwell will be playing centre-back for Canada.
I hope so. Yeah, he could. Actually, Robbie got a Canadian national team jersey for his birthday yesterday.
Oh, brilliant.
Stunning red jersey, the Nike. It looks fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was wearing that to his birthday dinner last night.
Glad you got pictures, because he always told me he was playing for Scotland when he was older. So.
He changed after that Argentina game. I think he realised he was always going to be a loser.
Oh, there you go. Good stuff. All right, Shawnee, let's go over to you for some headlines.
Yeah, let's move through these pretty quick. We went a little long on the first, but let's do this. Mathijs de Ligt and his advisors are said to have rejected the latest offers from FC Barcelona, with Bayern Munich as the possible move for him. Where do you expect the hottest center-back prospect to land, and for how much money?
Rumors of his mum and his girlfriend shopping for a house in Paris.
Okay.
So PSG would be pretty good for him. Reported £340,000 a week.
Crazy.
At that point. But De Ligt, we talk about Alphonso Davies and some of the teenagers. This is without question the greatest teenager in world football right now. And interesting, by the way, about Eric Abidal, who's now the director of Barcelona, posted on Instagram last week a quote from Johan Cruyff when he said something along the lines, I'll paraphrase here, but he said something along the lines, if you're not quite sure about Barcelona, then we're definitely sure it's not for you.
Yeah, I love it.
And then he was later asked about that and said that he got hacked. took down the post. So Eric Abidal went all Kevin Durant or something. So,
if you get hacked, I wonder why you'd be so
posting
subliminal with your message.
You wouldn't be posting, if you
yeah.
got hacked, you wouldn't be posting Johan Cruyff quotes.
That's what I mean. It would have been a bit more abrupt, would it not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
ridiculous.
Abidal's subtle message through his hacked Instagram to De Ligt saying, if you're thinking about coming here, we need to know.
This guy should not be thinking about salary. He's going to get paid way over £150,000 a week, so he shouldn't be thinking about the 300, 400 plus. He'll be writing his own checks in 4 or 5 years' time. A club will be saying to him, you just tell us what you want in your bank account a month and we'll put it there. He should be thinking about the best destination, and the best destination for him has the league connected to it. I'm sorry, he needs to go to Spain, he needs to go to England. No doubt about it. Paris, Juventus, Bayern Munich, wrong choice. Even if he wins Champions Leagues, he'll canter to the league every single year. Not good enough for me, KJ. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United. That should be his options.
Moving on to Manchester United, it's time for us to maybe take a little hatchet to them. They've re-signed
Not
Juan,
again.
Yeah, they keep doing it, but no, they re-signed Juan Mata, who's an okay player, but a 2-year extension for the 31-year-old Maestro. What should his role be for the club over the next 2 years, and what is his role for the club over the next 2 years?
I think it's what it's been the last 2 years. I think he's more of a peripheral squad player who can come in. He's versatile. The one thing about Mata is that everyone says is that he's just an unbelievable guy.
Yeah.
Like a class act. And let's be honest, there's I was going to use a word, I won't use it. There's a lot of idiots in football who aren't quite class guys. So when you've got good people and you're trying to build a foundation of a club that's gone a little bit out of that, I think this is important. Regardless of what he's done on the field, he's a good guy. He can make an impact. He's the kind of player who can, no disrespect to Mata, but he's the kind of player who can get a hat-trick against Villa next year in the Premier League and win a game for them easily. Yeah. You know, those kind of teams. If you're building for the future and you're thinking solely about how we're going to be this Champions League winning team in 4 or 5 years, then he's not the play for you. But right now, through murky waters, you need him on your ship.
I definitely believe that. I think it's a good signing by Manchester United. He's a great character. What you see is what you get with Juan Mata. You know what's going to come. 100% effort, great technical quality. You know, he's lacking in certain areas to be truly dynamic and one of the top teams in the Premier League. But I think this is smart from Manchester United. I just think with everyone expecting the big signings that they're hoping come, this is very underwhelming. So maybe I would question the announcement. I probably would have just kept it in my back pocket until I could bring it on the back of something a little bit bigger if I was Manchester United. But these things often get leaked. Someone speaks to somebody. But, you know, why would you lose good people?
Yeah, exactly.
You're a club trying to really create culture again, and he's a winner. He's won things his whole career, so good move. Keep him on board.
Yeah, look like they're going to get Wan-Bissaka for 50 million as well. So I mean, that's the kind of guy you've got Wan-Bissaka and you're saying change room. You got Juan Mata's here. You know what I mean? Like just watch what Juan Mata's doing. So.
Fair enough. Moving on, Francesco Totti is leaving Roma after 30 years, and he says it feels like dying after he resigned from his role as director at the Serie A club. Is the club moving forward without Totti or De Rossi involved a hindrance to the team, or is it a step in a direction that they need to go?
That's a bit of a shambles, to be honest, isn't it? I mean, Totti took a swipe at the I love it. It felt like in the movie The Americans. You know what I mean? It's like the mob, The Americans. He took a swap at. That actually reminds me of another thing we could have talked about in terms of the whole celebrations of the World Cup, but maybe we won't go there. The Americans again, which I think was a little bit harsh by some people. But anyway, Totti leaving Roma. I have to say, I never thought I saw the day.
No.
Never thought I'd see the day. Well, I think you and I are pretty consistent on this. You got a guy like that who, quite frankly,
good people. bleeds
the red of Rome or whatever the colour is. You know, you just don't let him go, do you?
No, you don't.
Disaster.
You don't lose good people. It is a disaster, and shame on Roma for allowing that to happen and the powers that be. But he will be back there someday, won't he? It's just the case. The ownership at the time just, you know, not respecting or appreciating what he brings, and you know, nobody's more than the football club, but Totti comes pretty close. You know, he is Roma. When we think of Roma, we think of Roma for 15, 20 years, we think of Totti, and so it's disappointing, but I expect him to be back at some time in the not so distant future.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier about being uncomfortable with VAR. What was uncomfortable for me was like seeing on my Twitter timeline a statement from Roma on Twitter saying that Totti got things wrong and didn't understand things and a miscommunication. And I'm just like, is this what it's come to? Like, I don't know. It's just
Bad mouthing each other.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Leicester City and Manchester United were reportedly 40 million apart in the valuation of England defender Harry Maguire, with the Fox pricing him at 80 million. What is the price point right now for Harry Maguire?
I'd go with 40. What about you?
I wouldn't pay anywhere near 80. I'd maybe pay 55, 60 max.
We know that England players always have a far higher. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that because of the 17+8 rule and obviously the homegrown players and the rules that they can take. But and we have to look at past England players going for an extortionate amount of money, like Danny Drinkwater, like 35 million for basically drinking water. But
well, he wasn't drinking water.
He actually got done. He actually got done for drinking, not water. But there's so many of those examples. Stones went for a lot of money, although we talked a bit about Stones and his lack of development lately. I don't know. I just think Harry Maguire for 80 million.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Come on. I mean, he's a borderline international / Champions League player for me. Is he much better? And I mean, much better than Smalling?
I don't know. I would like to see him make that step up and to see how he develops.
Right.
I believe there's two men that two clubs, two men that could or should do that, Pep Guardiola and Mauricio Pochettino. I think that's the place that if I was Harry Maguire's agent, I'd like to see him go, to see what they can bring to his game to take him on a level or two, because I think there is a potential there for that, but I just think 80 million is ridiculous for Harry Maguire. It's too much money. I don't think he's worth that, but English players cost that, and it's whether one of these guys believe in him, but I wouldn't like to see him go to Manchester United. That's a wrong move for Harry Maguire at the moment.
Tottenham are closing in on Leon midfielder Tanguy Ndombele. Do you think this is a step forward for the Champions League runners-up?
Yes. Terrific player. If they get him, I think that's the kind of player they need.
Yeah.
He's the player that will bring strength and power to the midfield, and the player that other big clubs have been looking at. I always say, go get the good players and make them very good. Go get the very good players and make them great.
Yeah.
And that's what Pochettino can do. So whether it's Ndombele or there was rumors of Lo Celso, those kind of players that you're getting them at a good young age, that already got some Champions League experience, can carry you through, give you the squad depth. I know there's always be the scary issues about, okay, what's happened with some players coming from France in the past, and with the Chelsea and what's gone on there, but I don't know. I think it'd be a really good signing. What do you think? Yeah,
great signing. Sign him. He's got immense potential, but he's at a level at the moment that will make them considerably better immediately. And then the upside is that if Pochettino works his magic and he really makes them better, then you could have a truly world class central midfield player on your books. So I would certainly sign him if I was Tottenham Hotspur.
And obviously I was referring to Bakayoko there, but what I mean is he's also got that great name, hasn't he? Like for a commentator when he goes in, Ndombele! It'd be amazing. No, I love those names. Get him in.
Cavalry FC are on the cusp of clinching the spring season in the Canadian Premier League this weekend as they take on Forge FC. Cavalry are now sitting 7-0-0. 13 goals for, 3 goals against. With a blink of an eye, the spring season could be over. Is 10 games too short of a season?
Yeah, I mean, we covered this at the start. There's not a lot you can take from it, although it's clear that they're the class right now. I was talking to Terry Dunfield, who did the game recently, about them, and they're just on another level right now. And every credit, they've got everything right, the coaching, recruitment, with all that. So I understand why they did this, because they wanted to have a big moment for July 1st and then start another momentum going forward. And I think it was important maybe to reward a team like this who were clearly ahead of the game with a lot of other teams. So, 10-game season, around the world, people would laugh at that and see it's a bit farcical. But I think there was so much talk about this league coming in. To be fair, there's a lot more talk about it before it actually kicked off than there has been since.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of alarming. But they need to be rewarded. They were miles ahead of many teams, and there's the reward. Now, they could go on and win the next one. again, and then you open up the argument about why are we having a final, because that's another argument in itself, a playoff segment. But I don't have a problem with this.
No, I mean, it tends too short, but I understand why they do it, and I mean, I'm excited for there to be a little bit of break, and hopefully the CPL can take stock of what happened in the first games, positives, negatives, and how they can develop and take the league forward in the next 17. So in that regard, I think about being so short might not be such a negative thing, but a 10-game season is, I feel like we just started and I'm like, oh, it's finishing already, because we've not been on top of this so much, KJ and I, with our other commitments. We're just sort of seeing it, and it's nearly done. So,
I mean, that's not down to the fact that we didn't want to. It's just down to the fact that we talk about what we want. We talk about what we know.
Yeah.
And we only can't
watch it.
We can cover. We're covering what we're covering,
Yeah.
and we've certainly, without patting ourselves on the back, we don't get this far in our career at TSN to talk about things we don't know about.
Yeah.
You got to put the work in. We've got, it's not just the broadcast we do. So
absolutely,
it's no disrespect.
It's not by
CPL.
choice,
it's not
is it?
by
It's
choice.
just by the fact
just
that
by consequence.
We don't work on this league. Yeah. But what I am excited about, and it's a little bit to do with CPL, is Cavalry against Whitecaps, because there you have the best team in CPL against, in my opinion, probably the worst Canadian team in MLS, and so let's see how big that gap is and how far that has to go to be bridged in the Canadian Championship. That might be an exciting couple of games that are coming up in the not so distant future.
Perfect. Moving on to Ask AFP. We've got a few questions today. Obviously, we mentioned some in the game segment, but let's move forward. Peter asks, was Sarri announced today at Juventus? Is it Champions League or bust? And how long does Chelsea take to name a predecessor?
Wow. Yeah, Sarri was announced today. I have to share the story. So Sarri gets up in his shirt and tie, and you know that you don't see that very often, So he was asked how he would dress on the touchline as his Juve manager, and he said, I'll have to talk to the club, he said with a smile. Obviously, when representing the club away from the field, I'll wear what they tell me, and I prefer not to wear a shirt and tie on the pitch. But the important thing is that they don't send me out there naked at my age. What a man.
He's a cracker.
He's great, isn't he? But this is a very un-Juve hire, which might be a good thing. They are under immense pressure to keep winning, which is very difficult. They have failed in the Champions League over the last few years. And don't look now, but here comes Conte and Inter Milan, and it's a big train coming fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him here, as there has been at Chelsea. But what a likeable guy, isn't he? He's someone that we just root for. And I love how the whole thing panned out at Chelsea. I really do, because I got to be honest, that club does infuriate me a lot at times.
I agree.
And I see a guy come in with such a great reputation, and I blame the English media as well for part of this, but he comes into Chelsea, he starts brilliant, they're just desperate, waiting on something going wrong, waiting on his signings having some bad times, and they're right on top of him, and every little incident. I know there was a few reasonably serious ones, but they're right on top of it, and they're on Sarri, and they're not happy that he smokes and that he doesn't speak very good English and that he wears his tracksuit on the sideline, and they're on this guy, and he finishes third, and he loses to the best team in English football history in the League Cup final in penalty kicks, and he wins the Europa League, and he just sort of bites his lip through the whole thing, and he gets by, and then he gets this golden carrot of the best team in Serie A, the country where he loves, and he gets to go back, and he gets to, to the Chelsea hierarchy and say, bye, see you later, I'm gone, you deal with your mess and get one of your ex-players who's managed about 30 times in his life and see how he gets on within this circus, So I'm delighted for him. I'm glad it ended like this for Sarri.
I'm delighted for him too. I couldn't have put it any better, and it is a circus, and the recruitment's been a disaster over the last 2 or 3 years. They've got players who flitter in and out of seasons, not just games. That's what they do. They're the ultimate boom and bust team. And to answer Peter's final question, how long does it take Chelsea to name a predecessor? Well, this is the same club that wanted to sack Antonio Conte last season at the end of the year and allowed him to come back and start pre-season. So who knows what they're going to do? And if the inevitable comes up that they get Frank, good luck with that.
Yeah,
right?
Tough.
Yeah, and Villa just extended John Terry So make sure that he doesn't go.
Is that right? Good.
To get him an extended. Well, probably isn't worth the paper it's written on. Exactly. But I wasn't sure. Can't confirm or deny the rumor that Terry lifted a cup when he was given a new contract.
Got in his kit and lifted the cup.
Exactly.
Jorge asks, who will be Canada's great next star once Christine Sinclair decides to retire?
Oh, in the women's game, obviously.
I think so.
Yeah. Janine Becky?
Yeah, Becky.
Jordan Heitema?
Yeah.
Choices? Becky probably, no?
Yeah, I think maybe Becky. I mean, you think Heitema because of the same profile as Sinclair, but I think Becky's more primed to potentially be that in the immediate replacement to Sinclair. Lawrence, maybe?
I like Fleming. She's player.
Good. Yeah.
Terrific player, but the team has to be good.
Yeah.
And that doesn't say anything. I'm not having a go at her, but I feel like she's in a very good team. She could be exceptional.
Yeah.
But in a team that doesn't necessarily move enough or doesn't, she sees things other players don't see.
Yeah.
And I think that she needs better players around her a little bit. So I think in a top class team, she could be a real star.
Yeah, she's excellent. Someone's got the opportunity to take over the leadership of this team when Sinclair moves on, and I think that there's 3 or 4 candidates there.
Davey asks, what is the main cause of attendance problems at the Gold Cup and Copa America, and how could it or should it be resolved?
Well, the Gold Cup is down to the fact that they want them in big stadiums to counter to help fill the stadium for Mexico. I don't think it's been too bad at the Gold Cup. Copa America is another story we'll get to in a second. Gold Cup's not been bad. Mexico have had 60,000. I think both times, maybe.
I think they've averaged 58,000 in all the US games they've played since Tata Martino came in before last night's game.
Right. Wow.
So that tells you what kind of support they get everywhere in the US.
That's true. And the United States played in Minnesota, so not an
20,000,
not an NFL stadium.
Sold out,
so it was pretty clever. Yeah. So I think it's okay. Look, the prices are another thing. They're quite high. Copa America has been a disaster. And when Brazil play, obviously they're okay. Messi, they played against Paraguay 1-1. We saw that game last night. But some of the other games, I was watching Uruguay on Sunday. There was nobody there, hardly anybody there. Another game we were on Saturday. What was the game? Peru?
Yeah.
Nobody there.
Yeah. So, Peru, Venezuela, was it?
But I do think that
so. There's
an element of burnout here.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Copa America is one of the greatest international tournaments, and it's just too many tournaments. Let these players go on holidays, please. You know what I mean? We got Copa America again next year.
Yeah.
They're coming back. And then we've had Copa America before that, and then World Cup qualifiers. These players are playing all the time. They're exhausted. The teams are exhausted, and I think fans have had enough.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just too much.
It's almost like you're making a exhibition games out of the Copa America, and that in itself is such a tragedy because these guys are playing with the fumes that they have running through their bodies. You know, in fairness to them, they're I'm sure very proud to be representing their country, but it looks like they're playing with the handbrake on because they're so tired, and that's the big issue. And prices. You know, prices are a problem. They're too expensive. We need to revitalise the game of football in most regions, and we need to do that by making it affordable for families and kids to come and watch the football. So, you know, it's became a real serious business, football, but let's get people in the stands and let's get that passion and that, you know, fervour back within the game, and not just think about, you know, X amount of dollars per head, who's going to be in a stadium. It's such a North American mindset, but I just would like to see it become more about getting to realise a kid's dream and see a player that he idolises.
Yeah, and that's what Copa America used to be about. The speed of the World Cup qualifying games, the speed of these South American games. You'd watch it, it's like it's from a different planet than what else you watch. And now I'm watching it, and my overriding thought is that internationally, the game is way behind the club level.
Yeah.
At the top level in Europe, the Champions League, the Premier League, La Liga, tactically, tempo-wise, the Copa America looks slow, ponderous, too many fouls, loads of stoppages, tired players, too negative.
Deep behind the ball, have to break the best team has to break down the other team, there's no space.
It's a consequence, I guess, of players just coming together quickly for a quick tournament and manage to get the best out of them, but it's not a good product, no doubt.
Following up on that, John asks, do you think you'll ever see a time where CONCACAF and CONMEBOL combine to form one confederation or just a tournament?
I don't think they'll ever combine to form a confederation, but I'd never rule out a tournament. The problem you've got here is that they're incredible, vast majority. The distances between these places are absolutely enormous.
Of course.
Like, enormous. Like, you think about going, like, from Vancouver all the way to Rio or something. Like, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I would never rule out the tournament because a lot of it comes down to money. And right now, the giants of CONCACAF, and Tata Martino was asked this in his press conference, and he didn't want to get into it because he doesn't want to be controversial right now. Mexico got a problem because if all they do between World Cup years is play games in CONCACAF, they're not getting tested enough.
No, I know.
So they need to make a decision. They need to make it. It's not good for them to smash teams every time in World Cup qualifiers or Gold Cups.
No.
And what we're seeing right now is Mexico, with a lot of great players not there, are miles above everybody else.
Yeah, and so many at home, like you said, KJ, with injuries or whatever reasons. You think of Vela and Lozano and Chicharito and guys that would certainly be in that squad. Why can we not? We've got 10 teams in CONMEBOL, and they're inviting Japan and Qatar, and I think it's Qatar and or Qatar. They're calling them Qatar now, eh? Yeah. I call them Qatar.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Still,
of course, it's fine, mate. Yeah.
Qatar and Australia next year. Know, so why not invite the 6 best teams in CONCACAF?
Right.
And then you've got a 16-team tournament. Call it Copa America, whatever you want to call it. Come up with a new name. And there's a bit of competition there. Great competition for CONCACAF. Mexico and US are going to be absolutely delighted.
Yeah.
It maybe brings in the revenue of Mexico and US to Copa America, CONMEBOL competition. And you've got the Canadas, Honduras, Jamaica, Costa Rica, everyone fighting out Trinidad and Tobago to try and be the 2 other nations in that 4 other nations in that tournament.
Right.
Be awesome, but they keep going out with. Why? Money. Because they pay the money. They want to be there.
Qatar's got money?
A little bit.
Are we done, Shawnee?
We're all done.
All right. Thank you for that. Great stuff. And a reminder, always submit your hashtag AskAFP. We read them all and try and get them on as much as we can. We also want you to rate and review. And our review of the week comes from Pascal, who said, I look forward to this podcast every week. Always love to hear KJ and Stephen's thoughts on current soccer news and events. They are very fun to listen to. Highly recommended. Thank you so much, Pascal. And for all you listeners out there, make sure you rate and review the podcast if you can. We could give you a shout out on the podcast. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week on the Wednesday, the 26th, following the game at BMO Field between Toronto FC and Atlanta. We'll chat about Canada in the World Cup. Maybe VAR, maybe not. Let's hope not, right? The Gold Cup, MLS is obviously back in action. So thanks again to Dylan, to Clay, to Shawnee, everyone involved. Thanks for listening to A Football Game.